It's finally here, the latest game in the Pikmin series, and the first original Pikmin title for the Nintendo Switch, Pikmin 4. It's been just over a decade since the launch of the last numbered entry, and while we got spin-offs, short movies, and ports to tide us fans over, we were all clambering for a brand new entry. So, was Pikmin 4 worth the decade-long wait? Well, if you read the full title of this video, you should know that our answer is abso-pickin-lutely. Pikmin 4 shocked me in how much of a masterclass of a game it was, and has managed to become one of my Game of the Year candidates, which is a very small group right now. But why is Pikmin 4 so good, and were there any parts of it that I think needed to be better? Well, join me for this last episode in our Pikmin series review, as we tackle the big, the beautiful, and the brand new Pikmin 4. Let's start this review off simple. Let's talk about the Pikmin themselves. Pikmin 4 brings back all the major Pikmin from the past 3 titles: Red, Yellow, Blue, Rock, Winged, Purple, and White, with the latter 2 actually being used in the campaign after they were relegated to side modes only in Pikmin 3. Each one of these Pikmin play identically to how they did in Pikmin 3, retaining all of their elemental, movement, and combat abilities, with nothing new added to their repertoire. But just like in the last 2 numbered titles, Pikmin 4 introduces 2 new Pikmin to the family, the Ice and Glow Pikmin. Ice Pikmin are the more prominent of the 2, being acquired early on in the game, and, as the name would imply, their focus is entirely around the cold. Previous games used ice as an environmental aesthetic, but Pikmin 4 turns it into an elemental hazard instead, to go alongside the likes of fire, water, and so on. Ice Pikmin are immune to this new element, not getting frozen and being able to break ice-based gates. The other environment-focused power of the Ice Pikmin is how they interact with water. Rather than drown like most Pikmin will, Ice Pikmin float on top of the water's surface, meaning you can take them across bodies of water without fear, although they can't carry anything across. But don't worry, if you put enough Ice Pikmin into water, it will freeze it, and then you can use your other Pikmin across the lake, creating shortcuts and freezing any enemy stuck in the water. In combat, the Ice Pikmin latch onto enemies and can freeze them. This acts like a longer stun attack, but if an enemy dies while frozen, then its body will shatter and drop nectar. While the nectar is fine, it means you can't recycle this enemy into new Pikmin or Sparkium, so ending a fight with an enemy frozen is often not the optimal move. This is clearly intended as a balancing act though, as freezing enemies makes a lot of battles an absolute breeze, very quickly rising Ice Pikmin up the Pikmin tier list. In fact, given the usefulness of their freezing of water as well, Ice Pikmin might just be the best Pikmin to bring with you for any occasion. Even enemies who eat the Ice Pikmin get frozen, just like how the White Pikmin can poison enemies who eat them. Even in death, they are useful. Speaking of top tier Pikmin, the Glow Pikmin don't have an element unique to them, but they are instead immune to every element. These ghostly Pikmin show up in the night expeditions and can only die if eaten. Fire, water, ice, poison, and electricity? None of this harms the Glow Pikmin, and they can also fly like the Winged Pikmin. Their one drawback is simply that you can't use them all the time. Outside of the night expeditions, the Glow can only be used in the cave systems where they can be summoned using the Glow Pikmin seed, and only if you have less than 100 Pikmin. They've basically replaced the Bulbmin from Pikmin 2, who are also top tier but only found in caves. Speaking of tiers, a recurring topic throughout this video series has been to review the balancing act done for each of the Pikmin, with Blue usually turning out top tier, while Yellow and Red fight over last place. Pikmin 4, I think the game is way better balanced than in previous titles, and this is mainly because of the way progression works. Rather than immediately having access to 100 Pikmin, the game starts with a max of 20, and with only red Pikmin, and so you need to find Fralics to increase your Pikmin count, and onions to grow new coloured Pikmins. While Fralics are given to the player at a pretty steady pace, the onions are a different story. For most of the game, players can only grow red, yellow, and blue Pikmin, with most other types only being obtainable in the caves. You don't need a Pikmin's respective onion to find them either. I found both yellow and blue Pikmin in caves before I ever obtained their onions. What all this meant was that apart from red, I couldn't easily get new Pikmin of a specific colour, and this created an interesting psychological effect on my playstyle. It made me put more value on the Pikmin types I didn't have an onion for, and limited how many I brought out, relying more on the Pikmin I could easily replenish for combat tasks like red. This is good because I eventually did stop using red Pikmin, but it wasn't a case of them being useless, more that they had fulfilled their role and I was ready to move on to what was needed next. When you add on the fact that the player is limited to only having 3 Pikmin types with them at one time, I felt less guilty benching an entire colour of Pikmin to focus on the next relevant one for where I was in the game. Another part of the game that helps balance the Pikmin use is Ochi, your space pup companion. Taking the role of the second captain in this game, Ochi is vital to the main theme of the game and a word you will hear constantly throughout, Dandori. Dandori is the idea of doing a job efficiently, always planning ahead and making use of all the tools you have. It's been a vital skill for players to grasp ever since the first game, and it's been given a less subtle focus in Pikmin 4. And Ochi supports the idea of Dandori by not only letting you work on 2 places of the map at once, like captains of prior games did, but by opening the whole map up to be tackled in any way. See, Ochi has his own abilities and weaknesses to separate him from the player character, who I'll just call the Recruit. Both the Recruit and Ochi can command Pikmin, but with Ochi, the Pikmin can ride on his back, allowing him to take them across bodies of water. This means that water is no longer used to wall off progression like it was in past games, so blue Pikmin are not always required. This actually allows almost all of the maps of the game to be wide open from the start, giving Pikmin 4 some open world elements in how its maps can be approached. That said, this doesn't mean there aren't obstacles to progression in each map. Barriers, slopes and bridges all return, and while the first 2 behave similar to how they did in previous titles, bridges have changed slightly. Rather than needing to find the bridge part somewhere in the map, bridges are built using a new resource that Pikmin have to find. This resource is used for several things in the game and can be used on any bridge. The only limitation is how many resources you have, so it's up to the player to manage their resources and decide where best to use them, allowing the player to have more choice in their progression while not overwhelming them with too many options. Which can easily happen because the maps in Pikmin 4 are huge. While they are no longer segmented like they were in Pikmin 3, they certainly hit that game in terms of scope, and the developers knew this, adding in the ability to move your home base to 3 separate spots across the map, so you and your Pikmin aren't always running back and forth. It improves the Dandori, you see. Back to Ochi though, while Ochi can swim, he can't go underwater, and so the Recruit is needed to get anything below sea level. Ochi also can't make Pikmin charge, but he can charge at enemies himself, making him useful for combat or breaking down barriers and mushrooms. Ochi can also jump, a first for the series, meaning he can get up short ledges and platforms, but he can't throw Pikmin very high, even with the yellow Pikmin, so reaching some treasures in hard to reach places requires the Recruit. Understanding the difference in abilities between the 2 playable characters and using them to their fullest is a key part of Dandori, although sometimes combining them and having the Recruit and Pikmin ride on Ochi's back is the optimal play, especially against the enemies. Pikmin 4 has significantly more enemies and bosses than in any prior game, hitting the triple digits, and while many of these are just different variants on existing enemies like the Jumbo Bulborb or the Icy Blowhog, there are plenty that are brand new, but also there are plenty that are returning as well. Some enemies that haven't been seen since Pikmin 1 make their grand return in Pikmin 4, and while not every enemy from the series is back, a good chunk of them are. It's quite noticeable when you play each game back to back like I did, and I had plenty of moments in this game that made me go, oh, I remember him, or whoa, they brought this thing back? Appealing to that nostalgia is possibly the second biggest theme of Pikmin 4 after the Dandori. After all, Pikmin 4 is a special game for Pikmin fans. It's the culmination of every game in the series thus far, even Hey Pikmin. One of the reasons I played each game back to back was that it allowed me to see how the series evolved, and in my review for Pikmin 3 I commented on how that game felt like 2 steps forward and 1 step back for the series. It was an evolution of Pikmin 1's formula, but not really of Pikmin 2. Pikmin 4 though, isn't an evolution of Pikmin 3 at all, and if I had to say it was a successor to anything, I would say Pikmin 2. After all, the game brings back both the treasure system and caves. But in actuality, Pikmin 4 isn't really an evolution of any of the Pikmin games. Instead, it takes everything those games had and mixes them up, stirs them like a soup, and creates an entirely new experience with the best ingredients of the franchise. This is best exemplified by the fact that Pikmin 4 is a reboot of the series. The game begins with a recap of Pikmin 1, but with a twist. Olimar never returns, and so the rescue force gets called in to help Olimar, but they crash as well. This then leads the new recruit, a custom Pikmin character that the player can design themselves, to venture to the planet alone and rescue everyone stranded there. Not just Olimar and not just the rescue team, but even civilians who have somehow ended up on the dangerous PNF 404. All throughout the game there are references and reimaginings of events from the previous titles. Sparkium is needed by the player to travel to new areas, just like in Hey Pikmin. There are several cave systems that are direct references to ones from Pikmin 2. There's a trio of Copites that the player needs to seek out, much like the trio from Pikmin 3, and there is actually an entirely playable reboot of Pikmin 1 included within this game, complete with a day limit and everything. It's truly impressive how many features of the Pikmin franchise are included in this game. And that segues us nicely to the game's length. Pikmin 4 is long, like really long. Length has always been somewhat of an issue with the Pikmin games. The first title can be beaten in a single night if you know what you're doing, and while Pikmin 3 is longer, it's not that much longer. Pikmin 2 and Hey Pikmin were both decently sized in comparison, but Pikmin 4 blows them out of the water. It took me twice as many in-game days to beat Pikmin 4 compared to 2, and over 10 hours more. And unlike Pikmin 2, this length feels justified. Pikmin 2's length came from how long its caves were. They were lengthy dungeons, averaging around 8 floors. In Pikmin 4, they are significantly shorter, and a lot of the tedium has been removed. The floors no longer randomly generate their layouts, and if you do miss a treasure while exploring a sublevel, you can just jump back to it rather than trek through every prior sublevel. Given caves were the biggest complaint about Pikmin 2, Pikmin 4's return to them addresses all the complaints that players had, providing shorter and more visually interesting and more puzzle-focused dungeons to explore. So rather than the caves taking up most of the gameplay time in Pikmin 4, it is actually just the amount of content that can be found in this game. Even ignoring the previously mentioned Pikmin 1 remake and the increased enemy count, Pikmin 4 has more treasures to collect alongside collecting resources, onions, castaways, and medicine to help cure certain castaways. As you collect more castaways, you unlock more abilities for Ochi to learn, more items to help the recruit in combat, and upgrades to the recruit and Ochi that range from elemental immunities to new whistle abilities. The game also has more caves to explore and more explorable areas than any prior game. There is a wide host of story missions and side missions for the player to tackle, and a hefty post-game. And then there are the Dandori missions. Dandori missions can be split into two types, Dandori Challenges and Dandori Battle. These basically take the place of Pikmin 3's mission mode and bingo battles respectively, and can be played cooperatively or with two players against each other. In fact, all of Pikmin 4 is co-op if you want. The Dandori missions now appear during the main campaign as well, and serve as nice breaks from the main action. The battles have two players go at it to try and collect the most amount of stuff in a time limit, while the challenges ask you to test your Dandori skills by collecting everything on a map as fast as possible. Both types of challenges limit the type and amount of Pikmin you can use, and Dandori challenges specifically get really hard later on, living up to the challenge name. And then, to add even more content, there are also the Night Expeditions. These sections turn Pikmin into a tower defense game, where the player has to protect the glow Pikmin's luminol from waves of enemies looking to eat it and suck out that delicious juice. Every night the player starts with 10 glow Pikmin and has to build up their Pikmin army by collecting glow bits, and then throw their Pikmin at the enemy like it's a Dragon Ball Z spirit bomb. It's a cool distraction, but it's not very challenging, especially with an upgraded Ochi. And challenge is one of the two complaints I have about this game. Pikmin 4 is fairly easy. I don't think it's as easy as Pikmin 3 was, and it's a good thing that it isn't as obnoxiously hard as Pikmin 2 was, but the game never felt like a challenge to me until the final 10 Dandori challenges, which are intended to be the ultimate test of the player's skill. Now, it's possible that I found it easy because I just played every other game back to back and could be considered a Pikmin master by this point, but there are a lot of convenience features included in this game that players can abuse to make this game a cakewalk. Some of these I've spoken about already, like the ability to go back to any sub-level after you've beaten it, and then there are other features like the abundance of ultra spicy spray that you get, which make all your Pikmin twice as powerful. But the most egregious of these features is the rewind power. Had a bad run-in with an enemy and lost half of your Pikmin squad? Just pause the game, rewind to before the encounter happened, and try again. Did you leave a single Pikmin behind at the end of the day? Well, now the game prompts you to rewind time back 2 minutes and even drops you at your home base so you can immediately use the return home function to call back any missing Pikmin without losing any real progress on what you were doing. Any Pikmin I lost in this game were a result of me actively choosing to live with my losses and not what is essentially classic save scumming. The other issue I have with this game comes with the general hand-holding and clutter that I think the game has. Pikmin 4 has the longest intro sequence of any game in the franchise, comparable to Twilight Princess's intro for those who played that game. Between cutscenes and tutorials, it takes a while to get into the game proper, and then even when you do, it is not uncommon at all for other characters like Shepard and Colin to send the player messages and comment on things happening in the game. Sometimes this is just flavor text, and other times it's intentionally giving hints to the puzzles of the game, but regardless, I always found it to be distracting. Past Pikmin games didn't have this issue, allowing you to just exist in the world, but Pikmin 4 wants to distract me at almost every moment, and it can get quite annoying, especially with all the additional UI on screen. It just distracts from how amazing this game looks. And how amazing this game looks. Pikmin 3 on the Wii U is a beautiful sight, and Pikmin 4 goes beyond that, showing off the sheer scale of everyday objects and locations from the perspective of a tiny person. With new environment types to wander around in, including an entire downstairs living room and kitchen, and a plethora of new treasures, some of which interact with each other in fun ways, the presentation of Pikmin 4 is really top-notch. The music is also really good in this game. I haven't really talked about Pikmin music before, mainly because it's all quite atmospheric and well composed, but I wanted to highlight it in Pikmin 4 because it has some fairly unique tracks to really get across the mood of what is happening on screen, whether it be trying to frighten you or pump you up for a tough battle. Many bosses even have their own unique themes. It's the best OST the series has had, which just continues to show that Pikmin 4 is the best Pikmin game of the bunch. From its abundance of content, visual and audio presentation, story and character interactions, new gameplay mechanics and quality of life improvements, Pikmin 4 has really proven itself as being worth the decade-long wait. It feels like the culmination of the entire Pikmin series, but designed to appeal to both newcomers and veterans alike. While a bit easy at times, those going for that 100% have a long and enjoyable challenge ahead of them. If you're still unsure about the game, even after all this praise, then go and try out the demo now on the eShop. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. I want to thank Nintendo for sending us this game to review. It looks like it's been doing them well, and I hope it continues to do so. I don't want to wait another decade for Pikmin 5, thank you. Coming up on screen right now are all of our $5 patrons. A special thank you to them, otherwise we wouldn't be able to keep doing what we're doing. Let me know in the comments if you're planning on picking Pikmin 4 up, or if you already have, and what your opinion of the game is. This is the last episode in our Pikmin retrospective series, but it's not the end of Pikmin content on the channel. In fact, tomorrow I'll be streaming that remake of Pikmin 1, so come over and check it out. The simplest way to remember to do that is to subscribe, because if you subscribe to Source Gaming, then you will always remember to return to the source.